and good afternoon. I'm Dylan Ancheta in the Hawaii News Now Digital Center. I want to give you a traffic alert just into our newsroom. There has been a crash near the Kunia off-ramp. This is on the H1 freeway westbound. This is a live look right now. This crash in Kunia has closed at least 3 lanes of westbound traffic, and the slowdown is stretching all the way past Waikele. This came into our newsroom just minutes ago. We are working to gather more details on about the crash and if the extent of injuries so far. But once again, we are keeping a close eye on a crash out in the Kunia area. Westbound lanes are backed up. I also want to give you some news out of Kauai, where a fugitive has been arrested. Now, this murder suspect, Chris Santos, was on the run for 10 days over on Kauai. We've learned today that he has been captured. Now, Kauai police say federal law enforcement officers opened fire last night near Kekaha Beach Park. We're told Chris Santos was injured in the altercation, and he's currently being treated at Wilcox Medical Center, but his condition was not yet released. Kauai police say he was spotted driving last night at around 10:20. The police chief said, quote, "Unfortunately, despite several efforts to encourage Mr. Santos to peacefully surrender, his actions during contact with law enforcement officers resulted in an officer-involved shooting." Now, Santos has been wanted by authorities since September 8th for allegedly killing 28-year-old Kith Silva Larco of Kalahil on Kalihi Mountain. A second victim remains in stable condition. No officers were injured. Kaumuali'i Highway was closed in both directions as the investigation continued, but PMRF employees were let through to get onto base. Now, police are planning a joint press conference tomorrow with the latest details on all of this, and of course, we will bring you that information when we get it. So be sure to stick with Hawaii News Now on air and online for that. Let's go ahead and take a look at some of your other top stories for today. A man accused of deadly stabbings on Hawaii Island will be sentenced in November. Chido Asuncion killed 2 homeless men in Kona and attacked 2 others in Hilo last year. The now 25-year-old allegedly told investigators he targeted homeless people because he thought killing them would help get them to a better place. He pleaded guilty to 2 charges of murder and 2 charges of assault. Trial for extended sentencing starts today for the suspect in a deadly purse snatching. 20-year-old Saikit Sango was found guilty of manslaughter and robbery. He was on a bike when he stole a purse from 85-year-old Dolores Corpuz, knocking her to the ground. She had been on a walk with her husband on Kamehameha IV Road in Kalihi at around 5:30 in the morning in July of 2019. She sadly died 5 days later of a traumatic brain injury. At the time, the suspect was 17 years old, but he was tried as an adult. Today's hearing could give him a longer prison sentence because the victim was older than 60. Now to Maui, where starting Friday, Lahaina residents will be able to start applying for passes to re-enter the burn zone. Re-entry is set to start 1 week from today on Monday, September 25th. The county says residents will be escorted to the properties and provided personal protective equipment during the first 2 visits. Officials say zones will be cleared for entry after the Environmental Protection Agency has cleared properties of hazardous materials. Well, the death toll from the Lahaina wildfire was recently revised down. That went from 115 and is now at 97. Casey Lund explains more on how this happened.
That number 115 has been the number of fatalities we've had for weeks now. Just Friday, though, officials revised that number. It's now down to 97. We're taking a look at how that happened. We're told it's not all that unusual to have a revised death toll in a mass disaster like this, as many of those remains are fragmented. After careful examination, some duplicates were discovered in the count. However, the numbers we have now could still change. On Friday, Maui Police Chief John Pelletier told us more about the experts who are working to identify the victims. Some were involved in that process for the 9/11 terrorist attacks.
Just think about this, and here's what the most important part is. For the very first time we discussed today, for the very first time, we legitimately have a chance. We legitimately have a chance to identify every single person we lost and to reunite them with their family. And so in the midst of all this tragedy, there's a little ray of hope right there. And so that really is incredible.
Maui's police chief said that on Friday, at that Friday press conference, that there were originally started with more than 3,000 missing people from a number of different sources. Maui County's website right now says there are currently 69 victims that have been identified with their families notified, 8 victims without family notification that have been identified. Our records on our website show 71 identified, so we're working to clarify those numbers at the county. The youngest was just 7 years old, the oldest 98. The vast majority were in their 60s and 70s. In that age group alone, a total of 46. The death toll is still the largest in the United States wildfire, the largest from any U.S. wildfire in more than 100 years. For a comprehensive list of those we've lost, you can go to hawaiinewsnow.com.
Now, top officials are also responding to growing controversy over the government's plan to reopen West Maui. Eddie Dowd has more on an online petition with thousands of signatures aimed at keeping visitors out.
Last Friday, Governor Josh Green announced October 8th as the date to invite visitors back to West Maui. It includes the world-famous Kauai Beach, where tourism officials tell us more than 50% of the island's lodging accommodations are located. Right now, it's the temporary home of people displaced by the deadly August 8th fires.
It's hard. It feels like we are being abandoned as a community and our voices don't matter.
Courtney Lazo is one of the thousands of displaced Lahaina residents staying in hotels and Airbnbs in the Ka'anapali area. Once considered by some as the mecca for tourism on the island, it's become a refuge for fire survivors.
Some of us don't even know we're going to be next week or next month. It felt like a slap in the face.
The state says without reopening, hotels would have to lay off many of the nearly 3,000 unionized workers impacted by the fires. Governor Josh Green says the state is working with the Red Cross to reorganize those sheltered to make room for visitors.
We will concentrate our individuals that stay in hotels into just 2 or 3 hotels, and all the other hotels will be able to function as normal.
Having to pack your bags and relocate, especially, having kids, is really hard.
While there have been calls for visitors to enjoy other areas outside of West Maui, some in the tourism industry feel it's tough to sell a vacation to Maui when Ka'anapali is off limits. One travel agent telling us it's where almost all her clients want to book rooms.
I would say probably 80% stay in West Maui. It has beautiful, pristine, amazing beaches. My concerns are that the people of Maui aren't ready to accept tourists. As much as someone can be mindful when they visit, they're there to have fun. They're there on their vacation, and it's easy to forget that other people are suffering.
The big October 8th reopen date set by the governor is meant to dispel those concerns after his office says he talked to hundreds of working-class families and small businesses devastated by the wildfire. But on Saturday, an online petition to push back that date started garnering hundreds of signatures. 24 hours later, more than 3,000 people added their names.
If I could say one thing to the governor, I would say, please come and truly meet with us, the people of Lahaina, and let our voices be heard.
I understand where anyone's angst might be. My heart is with everybody who are with me on this decision or not. I would ask them humbly to look in the face of a family that's lost everything and all they've got is their job.
Everyone is struggling here. How can you keep your employees? How can you keep help? How can you keep people from moving away if we don't allow tourists back?
But for people like Lazo, who lost her home in the fires, tourism dollars are the last thing on her mind. It's what she's going to tell her kids when they ask her questions like this.
Are we going to be okay? Are we going to have somewhere to live after this? Those are hard questions to hear and hard questions to answer, especially if you don't have the answer.
Maui County Mayor Richard Bisson is also responding to the petition with this statement reading, quote, "We share many of the same concerns raised and would like our community, especially those facing hardships brought on by the disaster, to know that we will be addressing how we can support their well-being and welfare through several announcements we plan to make this week," end quote. Eddie Dowd, Hawaii News Now.
Maui fire victims may start seeing some extra money in their bank accounts soon. Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson says victims who have signed up for the People's Fund of Maui will be getting $1,200 per month starting this week. Johnson started the fund along with Oprah Winfrey. They've each donated $10 million of their own money into the fund.
We've changed the game with this because never before has a fund been made. You remove the red tape. The money's not going through 15 different organizations. Goes directly to the people. They'll start getting their money next week. Wow. Which is awesome.
So far, more than 2,000 people have been approved for the fund. The deadline to apply is September 22nd. You can find more details at hawaiinewsnow.com. Now to news back here on Oahu. Honolulu police are searching for a group of suspects who burglarized a music studio in Kaka'ako. Some $15,000 worth of equipment, including speakers, instruments, and cameras, were stolen. It happened around 2:40 Saturday morning on Lana Lane. The owners say a brick was used to break through the front door. A pair of pliers was left behind that the suspects used to try and cut security cameras outside. The room was left almost completely empty.
Pulled up and the window was smashed. Almost all of our gear was gone. It was just a really horrible thing to wake up to.
It was just heartbreaking because a lot of the instruments and equipment that was taken was, things that were also very sentimental for me.
The owners say they were preparing to move into a new place just a few days from now. HPD has opened a burglary case. We've posted a link to the GoFundMe on our website. 10 people have been selected to an oversight group in the defueling of the Navy's Red Hill facility. That includes 2 well-known Native Hawaiian activists. EPA officials say the 10-person panel, called Community Representation Initiative, or CRI, will meet about once a month throughout the closing process. The defueling is expected to begin sometime next month.
We're not activists. We're active in this. We're active in the protection of our aina, of our waters, of our keiki, of our kupuna, and of each other.
The 2 organizations chosen to be a part of the group are the Environmental Caucus of the Democratic Party of Hawaii and the Sierra Club. Both groups have been instrumental in the closing of Red Hill. Now we go to a new episode of The Debrief, where our digital producer, Emily Cristobal, spoke with key lawmakers to discuss what's being done to solve the ongoing issue of homelessness.
According to data collected last year, nearly 6,000 people experienced homelessness in the islands, with a vast majority of those being residents and 1 in 4 being Native Hawaiians. Thus, with homelessness still proving to be a chronic problem, I spoke with State Senator Joy San Buenaventura and State Representative John Mizuno about what's being done to help those most in need.
We don't have a higher amount of addiction that you would think would lead to homeless. We don't have a higher amount of behavioral health issues, which you would think would lead to homeless. What we do have is this huge wage gap. Although it's very easy to see that people on the streets, they're the ones causing the most trouble, are the ones with mental issues, with addiction problems. Really, a vast majority of those who are houseless are those who have some form of income, but just can't afford the rents in Honolulu. If we really want to tackle the problem, we need deeply affordable housing.
There has been a spike in homelessness in our district, but we're doing our best to try to address this and try to find shelter or a nice transition for them. Again, it's not against the law to be homeless, but unfortunately, it does sometimes affect the surrounding residents. There's been an uptick in crime in Kalihi Valley, so that's another concern. But yes, homelessness is very prevalent, and my district is no different than many other districts.
Now, that was just a snippet of a longer conversation that we had, in which we also discussed the governor's Kauai projects, Ohana zones, and even the Return to Home program, which sends out-of-state homeless individuals back to their home state. You can watch the full episode of The Debrief online or on HNN's digital platforms. This is Emily Cristobal for Hawaii News Now.
In international news, several wrongfully detained Americans are on their way back to the United States following a high-stakes diplomatic exchange between the Biden administration and Iran that included a multi-billion-dollar deal. CBS News' Skylar Henry is at the White House with the details as critics express their concerns over the swap.
President Biden spoke on the phone with the 5 Americans who were freed from an Iranian prison after they arrived in Doha, Qatar Monday. Imad Shargi, Siamak Namazi, Norad Tabaz, and 2 others who have chosen to remain anonymous were let go, along with 2 more people who were prevented from leaving Iran. They're all headed for Washington, D.C., soon to reunite with family.
These Americans are now free after having endured something that I think most of us can't possibly imagine.
The Biden administration agreed to a deal in August, clearing $6 billion in frozen Iranian oil funds and transferring the money from South Korea to Switzerland and then to a bank in Qatar. Officials insist there are guardrails on how the money can be used and won't be accessible to support terrorism or Iran's nuclear program.
President Biden's also been very clear that one way or another he's committed to ensuring that Iran never acquire a nuclear weapon.
Though the Biden administration reiterated that the money will be severely restricted, some lawmakers on Capitol Hill say they're concerned that any financial relief will incentivize future hostage taking.
$6 billion of released funds will only make it far more expensive for every single American who's traveling abroad. It's a bad decision, although we do thank God that those folks are coming home.
In addition to the funds, President Biden also granted clemency to 5 Iranians who were facing charges in the U.S. for nonviolent crimes. 2 who have legal status in America have chosen to stay in the country. Skylar Henry, CBS News, the White House.
Let's go ahead and give you a live look outside. Now, this is a live look at Halemaumau crater over there on Hawaii Island. Of course, Kilauea has once again settled down. Now, Madam Pelehunuamea put on a show that lasted 6 days. Experts at the USGS Hawaiian Volcano Observatory say lava stopped flowing onto the crater floor Saturday morning. Spattering stopped at vents at around 11:15. Sulfur dioxide emissions have dropped and geologic activity has eased. Now, this latest eruption started Sunday, September 10th, as lava erupted at the volcano and it put on a beautiful show. And the good news, all of the lava was confined to the crater. Once again, this is a live look there provided by USGS. Guy Hoggy will have more on your forecast right after this short break.
How's it on this Monday? We're in the peak of hurricane season, although it's still very quiet here in the Central Pacific, and that's good news. However, there's a potential cyclone in the East Pacific. It's far away, and long-range forecasts say it will not impact our weather. Now, this morning, we have some leftovers from what used to be a hurricane, and those scattered showers are moving through with the trade wind flow. Still, though, rainfall totals will be a little on the light side, even though it might be a little squishy this morning for a handful of windward spots. Those trade winds will hold firm for the rest of the week. So it's going to be quite comfortable today. Even though we got lots of sunshine, high temperatures will be running to near 90. Those nice brisk trade winds will keep humidity levels on the low side. So all in all, a beautiful day today that will likely continue for the next week. As far as the surf, there's not a whole lot happening, but we still have some action on south and west shores with another little reinforcement due tomorrow for south and west shores as well. So the weather's not going to change very much anytime soon. If anything, we'll have fewer showers starting tomorrow. But those breezy trade winds don't run firm all the way through Friday, and then they're going to back off over the weekend.
Thank you so much for that forecast, Guy. The U.S. military is searching for wreckage of an F-35 fighter jet that crashed near Charleston, South Carolina. A jet similar to this one went down Sunday afternoon. The pilot ejected safely, and first responders took the pilot to a medical facility for treatment. A statement released said the pilot was in stable condition. No word on what caused the crash. The military says the fighter jet's last known location was near Lake Moultrie and Lake Marion, two large bodies of waters northwest of the city. It is asking the public for help in case someone spots the wreckage. Well, the United Auto Workers' historic strike against General Motors, Ford, and Stellantis has entered its fourth day with no deal in sight. Negotiations floundered over the weekend. Mike Valerio takes a look at where things stand.
Well, at this juncture, the strike has stopped about 15% of production at the big three U.S. automakers, and it seems as though negotiations are stuck in the slow lane. Weekend negotiations saw little progress between the United Auto Workers and the big three automakers.
We still have a long way to go.
While the strike remains targeted at one plant for each company, the union warns it could intensify efforts this week if its demands are not met.
We'll see how things progress the next few days, and if we have to amp up pressure, that's what we're going to do.
Top of the list for workers, an immediate 20% raise, followed by 4 additional 5% raises over the 4-year deal. All three companies have countered with a 20% raise during the life of the contract with an immediate 10%.
We gave up a lot in 2008 to help Ford out during the recession. We didn't get any raises for 3 contracts. So it's time for us to get something.
Analysts say the U.S. economy is getting bruised, but the strike's impact isn't likely to push the nation into a recession.
It would depend very much on how long the strike lasts and exactly who's affected by it.
The spillover is already impacting non-striking workers, with both GM and Ford announcing temporary layoffs on Friday. Suppliers working with the big three could also face layoffs soon. Impacted states like Michigan will see a decrease in tax revenue, and buying a car could get more expensive.
It's not that we're going to wreck the economy. We're going to wreck their economy, the economy that only works for the billionaire class.
And another dynamic to watch. Beginning tomorrow, the UAW's counterpart in Canada could go on strike against Ford. That could put even more pressure on one of the big three U.S. automakers. That's the latest. Reporting from here, I'm Mike Valerio. Back to you.
Meanwhile, talks are resuming this week between the Writers Guild of America and the Alliance of Motion Picture and Television Producers. This after a months-long hiatus. WGA sent a message to members Monday confirming the meeting. The last time the two groups met was in August, and nothing of substance came out of that meeting. Members of the WGA have been on strike for 140 days now. They're asking for better wages, among a number of other demands. So far, the two sides have made progress on artificial intelligence regulations, though there is still said to be a little disagreement there. On the table now, streaming residuals and a proposal for a mandatory staffing level in TV writing rooms. We want to go back now to that breaking news that we told you about off the top of the show. As you can see, the traffic there on the H1 westbound is still slow going. This is after a crash near the Kunia off-ramp. This is a live camera at the H1 and Waikele westbound. Lanes are backed up all the way past into Waikele area. And I also just got this bit of breaking news in right now. Mililani High School was briefly placed on a lockdown as a precaution after a threatening message was found on campus. This is according to officials at the DOE. The school's administration is working with the Honolulu Police Department, which has officers at the school. Now, the lockdown was lifted after 12 p.m. So once again, we are just learning about this into our newsroom. Mililani High School briefly placed on a lockdown after some sort of threat was received on campus there. Let's go ahead and end today's show with another live look out at Kilauea. This is a wider image of Halema'uma'u crater. If you were lucky enough to see Pele Honuamea doing her work over the last week, you were in for quite a show here. But right now, just some minor smoldering there on the floor of Halema'uma'u crater. I thank you so much for watching. This is Now. Be sure to tune into our first show starting at 4 o'clock on KHNL. Have a great day.